to second. And Martin makes the catch for the touchdown!
We are live at Studio B. This is your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I'm Spencer Linton, teamed up with Dave McCann. Joining us now over in the Cougar Council Room is the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, here to talk football, basketball, and a little bit of BYU women's soccer. So, Greg, nice to have you.
Good to be here.
Good vibes all around. 8-0. Let's just go ahead and start there. In this journey and an unexpected one, what has been your favorite part about the improbability and the reality now that BYU is a top 10 team and they're 8-0 in year 2 of Big 12 play?
Well, I like the fact that it truly proved that you can't predict the Big 12 year to year. There's going to be a surprise team every year that rises up. Last year, you could argue it was West Virginia. This year, clearly it was BYU. And yet, you look back for the clues. What were the clues that BYU might have been this kind of team or could be this kind of team? And you saw it in that they weren't that far away from postseason play last year. You could argue, they could have and should have been in the postseason with those last two games going the way they did against Oklahoma State and Oklahoma prior to that. So they weren't too far away. They were 5-7, but they weren't by any stretch, a mess of a team. It was just a team that came short in a couple of games and had a quarterback change. And then when you take a team that wasn't that far away and bring almost everybody back, well, that's the key today in college football is can you somehow find continuity amidst the sea of change that has been brought about with the portal and NIL, and BYU did have that. So a team that's not far away with a lot of the same pieces back, a couple of coaching changes. Yeah. There were some indications that BYU could be good. Now 8-0 good, I don't think anyone saw that coming, but I think you do look for that. Who might be the team? Well, try and find those commonalities. Teams that weren't that far away and teams that do bring back a lot of the previous team. That was BYU. Now, the SMU game is kind of an escape. The Oklahoma State game is kind of an escape. But you need those kind of games in special seasons where you look back in 84, it's maybe the Hawaii game. You look back and say, oh, that might have been the game, but you find a way to win a low-scoring grinder.
The Wyoming shootout.
Sure. So you look back and you say, well, there's a game or two that might have gone the other way, but we found a way, and those become the linchpin games in the special season.
David Nixon and Blaine Fowler on AFR the other night made a good point. They discussed, much like what you're saying is, especially on defense, they're the same guys for the most part in the right spots, whereas last year they weren't in the right spots, and that's the big difference between winning and losing.
And in the second year of a good scheme with Jay Hill, it took a lot of getting to know each other in a lot of ways in year one. But they were back and operating under the same scheme, and the second year makes a big difference too. And even in games that or in games where plays happen against BYU, the defensive coaches are saying it's this guy peeking inside. It's this guy not twisting when he was supposed. They're identifying the pretty easy fixes that have resulted in maybe big plays the other way. But overall, this defense is really clicking.
Yeah.
We just were discussing the college football playoff poll. It's released next Tuesday on
Election
Super
night.
Tuesday. Yeah. There's basketball for BYU.
Yes, there's a lot going on that night.
The college football playoff poll, and yes, then an election that we are going to watch unfold. But we're asking today, if the committee were to release the poll today, where do you think they would place BYU?
Well, it really comes down to, they're either going to have BYU or Iowa State as the seeded team or the unseeded team out of the Big 12. I think that's what it comes down to. So which team will get the 4 and which team will be in the lower part of the poll as the unseeded team, because top-ranked power conference team, or rather the top 4 highest-ranked conference champions, or if you will, conference, will be the top 4 seeds.
Sure.
And if BYU is the best seeded team out of the Big 12, well, that's where they would be, is in that, probably in that 4 spot. All that needs to happen is the result this weekend between Texas Tech and Iowa State. What happens in that game? Does what happens in that game persuade the committee to move Iowa State above BYU? Both would be 8-0 and 5-0 in the Big 12. They'll compare records, they'll compare resumes, they'll look at all the different metrics and decide which of those two teams are the most deserving. If Texas Tech upsets Iowa State, well, then there's no question whatsoever where BYU is going to be, I think, next Tuesday.
Let's talk about Jake Retzlaff. Both of you guys interviewed him after the Oklahoma State game last year, maybe his lowest point. And so yesterday on Jim Rome, he's at his peak, or heading toward his peak. What's the difference? What's the difference between Jake in November and Jake today?
He's played a season of football. He played 4 games last year and 8 games this year. He started a season of college football. And I thought Aaron Roderick put it great on Coordinator's Corner on Monday. he said he's doing what every quarterback's done. Whether it's Zach Wilson or Jake, they all take time to grow. And it's taken a season to have Jake look the way he's looking right now. It's a natural progression. It was a tough spot for Jake to go in last year, replacing Keaton Slovis late in the year where things are getting a little sideways and the losses are piling up and injuries have piled up. And it was tough for him. He handled it. In fact, I go back to his West Virginia postgame interview, which was his first start. That was a tough night in Morgantown. But he was the first guy out to take questions, and I thought the interview after a loss in his first start told me as much about him as almost anything over the ensuing 12 games. From that first, and I know it's only an interview, but what he showed in that game on the field and then how he approached it after the game kind of told me and Hans and everyone else in Cougar Nation, that's the guy you want. And it's a vibe thing, it's a feel thing, it's something you see it when you recognize it when you see it, and I think Jake has it. He has all the things you want to see from your starting quarterback, and yeah, after 12 starts, he's won 8 of them, and most of them are power conference starts.
6 of them
about here.
Well, sorry, 10 starts, but he's won 6 of those against 10 Power 5.
Right, so
teams.
He's really coming along, and how confident do you feel now with that guy at the helm? I mean, you'd rather have nobody else back there. He's a dual threat, a true dual threat. He finally got passed up this past week for the season rushing lead by L.J. Martin. It was bound to happen at some point.
8 games.
Thankfully.
Jake doesn't have to carry us anymore. But no, and L.J. too becomes a great secondary storyline. You realize just how much you miss him. They got by, and kudos to BYU for getting by and winning really important games where they weren't at full strength. I mean, you don't just drop out your starting center, Connor Pay, and say, nothing's going to happen. It was almost like they just kind of picked up where they left off. Now, granted, Connor Pay is coaching those guys the entire way. You want Connor Pay in there. But, man, Bruce and Sonny and Austin, these guys have really come together and found a way to make it so that it doesn't kill you, right? It doesn't really seriously hurt you. And then the running back room, shout out to those guys. Without LJ and Hinckley for those games, they tested their depth and depth responded. But now that LJ's back, man, that's your guy. That's your workhorse guy. And then you can also drop in Hinckley and end the game with Hinckley being the guy. Last week at UCF. There's just so much to like about this team right now.
All right, we got soccer and hoops to talk about, so let's finish with football here. 18 years ago, where were you?
I was on the sideline, about the 10-yard line at Rice-Eccles Stadium.
Rice-Eccles?
Yeah.
I was in Vegas working. You were on the mic, calling Beck to Harleen.
Yeah.
The last time BYU's won up there in Salt Lake. Do you feel that history is ready to kind of get a reboot, an update here this week from Saturday?
I sure hope. I've had a lot of really kind of somber endings of nights up there in the last 15 plus years, and that one's an all-timer that we're seeing on the screen right now. And I'd like nothing better than for a game up there to go that way again. The Cougars are due, right? They're due.
I don't know if I want to see a last-second drama.
No, Kalani doesn't want that either. He wants the easy wins. He doesn't want the dramatic ones. But either way they come, however they come, we'll take them.
Great stuff. All right, as Dave's mentioned, a couple of other things we'd like to hit on with you, Greg. Speaking of BYU men's basketball, they too enjoying immaculate vibes as they enter their season. It's been a wild offseason. They get Colorado Christian tonight. What are you hoping to learn about BYU men's hoops tonight when they finally get to play against another team and we can watch it?
Yeah. We know, go to the internet, you can find out what they did against a pretty good team on the weekend. That's a good indicator. The team they took on in the secret scrimmage is a good basketball team. And so to perform the way they did in that experience is very positive. Rotation-wise, I don't know yet, what it's going to look like and and if we can judge off of one exhibition how it's going to go game to game. I really do sense that Kevin Young is going to be a hot hand guy, and he's going to react to the flow of the game and where the buckets are coming from and kind of play that way. I don't think it's going to be so rigid and defined as to where things have to be. I think it's going to be free flowing and reactive and deep. And we talk about 7-8 man rotations, and this with this team, you want to see guys like 9, 10, 11, right? You want to see those because they're great players too. And so it's as deep with aggregate talent as I think BYU's ever been. And it's not a bad problem to have to try and figure out how to parcel out the minutes. As long as you're winning, everyone should be happy.
I've got an article in the Deseret News today with your analyst, Mark Durant. You guys 28 years together. And I thought was interesting is one thing he's looking forward to seeing is Kevin Young coach a college basketball game, which none of us have seen before. And it's just so different from the NBA game. And in Mark's words, he's assembled an amazing roster, and now it's Well, let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
And how interested are you to just see how he coaches?
That's the thing. 8 fewer minutes to go around, right? In this, with your players, and who knows who has to carry. I don't know if anybody has to carry a heavy minute load this year. We'll see. There could be nights where guys play 35, 36 because they're playing so well and they're not in foul trouble. But man, what a luxury! And I don't want to, exaggerate too much, but whatever his starting 5 is, okay, you could go to your next 5. You could do a hockey line change, and you'd have a really good second team out there. You'd have a really good basketball team with the second group of 5. The way this talent's been assembled right now, what a luxury to have, to know you could basically play, 2 5-man teams and expect, if not identical, maybe comparable results. And that's kind of what we're looking at right now. Again, it's early and we've got to see it all come together. But the aggregate talent level is there to let you believe that that's the kind of group he's got.
Greg Wrubell is with us on BYU Sports Nation. We'll finish with BYU women's soccer. And Dave, I would like to point out to you and to everybody else listening that Greg and I were at dinner on Friday night.
We were?
In Orlando with Tom Holmo and Brian Santiago and some great BYU people. And Greg looked at me and he said, as a tie game, he said, BYU is going to find a way to score a goal. They're going to win this game against Texas Tech. Yeah. You watch. It's going to happen. And then like 2 minutes later, bang, we're all on our feet, we're clapping, we're super excited, and it happened. You manifested it.
Yeah, we all had our little devices out. We're trying to socialize and be, proper people, but we're also distracted by the fact that we've got this game going on.
Yeah, churro, Disney World.
No, he knew, but you said it with such surety, Greg, like, no, they're going to score, and BYU will win this game.
And as soon as they locked up that free kick, I thought, here's the moment. And it was the moment.
You said that.
Turned out.
Here's the moment.
Yeah.
So quarterfinals Saturday against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, Oklahoma State
win today.
wins a wild one this morning. Yeah. They were down to Cincinnati with 4 minutes to go, 2-1. They win 3-2 with 2 goals in the final 4 minutes. So the 4-seed BYU, 5-seed Oak State Saturday.
Does BYU need to win that game to get in the NCAA tournament?
I kind of think they're in. I think the RPI is in a spot, and the Texas Tech win is huge for BYU. And Oklahoma State's a good enough team that it won't hurt you at all in the RPI should you not win that game. I think a win is great to have, but I think they're already in. Yeah, I really do.
Saturday morning in Kansas City. It just adds to another great 9-10 day window of BYU sports, almost unprecedented. With what we got.
Novembers get pretty crazy, but this November in particular is very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting indeed.
Great to talk with you.
Always good to be with you guys. Thank you.